All right, hello, finance and accounting professionals. Adidamola Jai here. One thing I love doing is I love teaching. I love teaching, something I'm really passionate about and I'm really good at. Okay, and so today I want to teach or I want to show you something very simple. Most times this looks like it's a very technical area of finance and accounting, right? And that's your deferred tax. When you ask people, and at times you go for interviews and you get questions on deferred tax and some people struggle, and deferred tax is not as complex as you think it is, right? So I'll explain deferred tax in a very simple term, in fact in a very relatable way, right? So let's take this practical example, right? So let's say that I like rice and egg, right? Rice and egg. So and I have a friend, he also likes rice and egg, but this is my particular friend, he likes his own egg put inside the soup or the stew, right? You want to pay any muta, right? Don't mind me, muta, right? But me, I like my egg. I don't like it in soup. Just peel and then give me my egg in my rice, right? The truth is that both of us are eating egg, but the way we want it prepared is different. That's the whole. That's how I explain deferred tax. So deferred tax is just simply on one side, right? Just like I talked of my friend, you have your accounting standards, you have your accounting rules, and on that side you have your the tax rules, the tax manager's own rules, right? And then so when you are preparing your financial statement or financial account, you have to follow the accounting rule, not just the tax rules, right? Because you don't just prepare account for taxes alone, a lot of other reasons. So you can't say you want to obey the tax rules at the detriment of your financial. So your IFRS, your GAAP, your laws, and all those other things. That's what we use to prepare financials, right? And on the aspect of the tax man, right, he has his own rules that you have to follow, right? So now what do you do? How do you reconcile it? That's the essence behind deferred tax. So deferred tax is that person that tries to stand in between what? The tax man and the accounting standard, and says, so it brings both of them. The difference between the two is simply what we call deferred tax. Let me make it practical. So one of the major causes of deferred tax, whether it can be an asset or a liability, depending on what actually the scenario we're looking at, right? So now, let's take a very practical example. One of the reasons why we have deferred tax is majorly our property, plant and equipment, PP, or what you call, or let me just say your non-current assets. Your non-current assets in your books, we do what we call depreciation, right? We have our depreciation rate depending on the policy of the company. So normally you have your plant and equipment 25%, you have your furniture and fittings so percent, building. So you have your own rules, right? According to your accounting standards or company policy or accounting policy, right? And then on the other side, the tax man has his own laws or rules that if you have this asset, I'm not going to allow you to do 25%. According to me, you have to do 15%. So look at it. If I prepare my financials based on that and financial based on this, they are going to be two different figures. So the difference between the two is what we call deferred what? Deferred tax, in a very simple form. That's what we call deferred tax. So if I use the example of the egg, so if I wash that pepper from my friend's egg, it becomes the same egg. That pepper itself is now what we call your what? Deferred tax, in very simple form. Though I'll do another video of practical. We'll go to the board and I'll show you in very simple terms how we calculate deferred tax. So that's deferred tax in a very simplified form. So next time you attend that interview or you have to explain deferred tax to somebody, you have to deal with deferred tax, you understand better what deferred tax is. And it's just simply accounting for the difference between the tax rules and the accounting rules when we prepare our financial statement. As simple as that. Adidamola Jai here, you are an exams buddy.